Chapter 27, The Changing World. The first part is steamed coal in Britain. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So I just started talking about some different things that happened in Britain, and it began to talk about the steam engine. It talked about how James Watt was the one who corrected it or perfected it because it was already around, but he kind of perfected it in a way. And they're just kind of talking about how it worked with the cylinder and the piston on the machine. And then
What year is that?
that was 1796 or 69, right?
No, okay. So that's before Civil War, am I? Before American Revolution War, huh? Yeah. Go ahead. So he's a Scotsman, Englishman, or Irish?
He was a Scotsman.
Scotsman, okay.
I think it talked about how that was very helpful to people. And then it started talking about coal and how people were working, or they needed coal for these engines or machines.
Yeah.
And so there were many people suffering from mining coal, and it talked about different stuff that they would get, such as choke damp, fire damp, and black lung. And it was just a struggle for them to stay alive in these mines, and even women and children were breathing in this dust, and they would help the men who were working.
Yeah.
And talked about how steam engines were growing pretty popular for railroads and land, and I think that's about it for this chapter.
Yeah. Okay. The next one, who want to volunteer?
I remember stuff I could say.
Okay.
So then it goes on talking about Eli Whitney after James Watt, I think it was, after he perfected everything. It talks about the cotton gin, how just a pound of cotton, it would take a slave at least not even a day to get seeds out of a pound of cotton. And so I think he was using a steam engine to figure out, he was just trying to figure out how he could help have less work, so he made the cotton gin. And he also made, because back in the day they would have guns that parts would only fit that gun. So he made a machine, or made parts that would only fit a certain type of gun, so they wouldn't have to go to a blacksmith to wait, because they would wait. And then it talks about standardization was a brand new idea.
Standardization. Okay. How to spell standardization about it?
STANDARDIZATION.
That's a long word, right?
It is. And it also says that steam, it said earlier that steam engines were like a big change in America, like independence was and slavery. And then it's saying that Whitney's two inventions helped change everyday life forever because of certain things.
It is a brand new idea, so it's called what in Lebanon called American system. Yeah. Okay. Good job, guys. It's very interesting, for those inventions change every aspect of modern life, right? So yeah. So let's move on to the next chapter. Wow, something about China here seems to be. Okay. I should know a lot about it. Hope so. Seriously, it's about China. China during the reign of the Qing Long. Wow, that is. I know a lot about it.
Yeah, we learned about that, I think, in chapter 20.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, Qianlong. Okay. Let's see. Where's the largest nation in the world? What is the word called? Territory-wise. The largest nation in the world territory-wise is Russia. Okay, so the largest nation in the world population-wise is China. Yeah, that's right. It's the largest nation in the world scale of territory-wise.
Yeah.
Here, there.
Uh,
Gonna be
Which one? You're asking which one?
America.
America, oh,
Okay.
America.
Scattered everywhere. Everywhere. Sensitive, huh? Okay. This is which river is the longest in the world?
River?
Amazon.
Amazon. Second,
Nile.
Nile. There you go. Third.
The Tigris.
No. That's in China, called the Yangtze River. Yeah, I think so. Okay, might be wrong, but it's pretty long. So all those rivers, except the Amazon River, evidently is a rainforest area, so it's hard for habitation. But Nile and China's Yangtze River become called, agriculture flourish around, so the population can get around, becomes called the cradle of each civilization, cradle of Egyptian civilization, cradle of called the Chinese civilization. Okay, so just you know, so okay, many civilizations started with or centered around of river system. Okay, like Euphrates and Tigris, the Babylonian system, right? So making sense to you? So even the Bible, Israel, just around the Jordan River, making sense to you? So yeah, okay. Okay, let's start with the reading of this. We're going to start with today. We're going to start with Esther. All right.
The kingdom at the center of the world. For 60 years, the Emperor Qianlong had reigned over China. He ruled in Peking while the Americans fought for independence, while Captain Cook sailed along the coast of Australia, and while the Bastille, what was it? The Bastille?
Yeah, Bastille.
Bastille fell.
Bastille. That's what? That's which nation belong to?
France.
France. Yeah. You mean that's prison? Yeah. Okay.
When Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, Qianlong was still reigning in China. While countries in the West invented steam machines, and settled colonies, Qianlong looked on without interest. China needed nothing from the West. The Chinese believed that the universe was centered on China. They called themselves the Central Civilization. Yeah. Western ideas about equality and liberty didn't seem to have much to do with China, where the Manchu emperor ruled as the son of heaven and lived in his forbidden city, far away from commoners. And the Chinese weren't particularly interested in Western inventions either. Wait, where? Western scientists wanted to find out about the laws of nature so that they could force wheat, cows, steam, and cotton to serve people. To serve people and their needs.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chinese had long followed the teachings of Confucius, who taught that the Chinese should accept nature and learn from it in a harmonious way, not to try to master it.
Don't do that again.
Sorry. Sneeze on it.
Oh, I sneezed down here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't read it.
Get started. Yeah. But that's very obscure and general understanding of the difference in two cultures, am I right? So
Yeah, I need to go blow my nose real quick so I don't sneeze
obviously
a bunch.
China also uses scientists to harness the force of nature to serve the wind. it's just slow. So, no, do the West wanted to say I'm gonna just abuse nature for my own end and do certain things. So anyway, there's general philosophical understanding behind it. Go ahead. So.
So Qianlong didn't send ambassadors to England and Russia or build Chinese trading ships to go aboard. And he didn't allow Western ambassadors and merchants to roam through China either. He announced that foreign ships could only come to one Chinese port, the port of
Guangzhou.
Guangzhou.
That's,
Guangzhou?
yeah, Guangzhou.
Guangzhou?
Yeah,
Guangzhou.
yeah. Let's hear Noah say it. He learned Chinese pronunciation.
Yuck.
He can't say it. He can't hear it.
How do you
Guangzhou,
pronounce
Guangzhou, hear me. Yeah.
Guangzhou.
Guangzou. Yeah, Chinese
Yeah.
word is
The port
difficult.
of Guangzhou.
Yeah, port of Guangzhou.
How do you
Guangzhou.
say it?
Noah would probably need to look up
Yeah,
paper too.
this is how you write it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Where? Oh, what is that?
Guangzhou.
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 Nice.
Yeah, that's something I can brag about it. I mean,
Which the English called Canton. Foreigners who came to China had to follow laws called.
that's why I call it Cantonese. Am I? Chinese have two dialogues: Cantonese and Mandarin. Don't know that? Mandarin. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. The 8 regulations. The 8 regulations told merchants exactly what they could and could not do. No foreign women were allowed to visit the warehouses on the dock at Canton. Canton? Wait, how do you say it?
Canton.
Canton.
Yeah. Why? Why you think so? Because the warehouse workers don't dress very properly. It's always have no shirt on, right? So why you want the lady to wear to those places? Go
No,
ahead.
no foreign merchant was allowed to speak directly to a Chinese officer.
It's all perspective, right? It's a good regulation,
Right.
right? Of respect,
Yeah.
civilization. Turn out to be like, the description here is like as if it's an uncivilized way, so totally representation. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Instead, he had to ask a Chinese merchant to speak for him.
Uh-huh.
Traders had to leave China at the end of the trading season and go home. Foreigners were forbidden to buy Chinese books or learn the Chinese language.
Huh? I don't know about that
Yeah,
one.
it's true.
That's not right. I don't think so. Never heard about that one. I know that they were interested to actually teach the foreigners.
I wonder
So,
what time.
I don't know
what
what's
point in time
the
they were allowed to
time
learn
frame
that.
they're referring to. This
wonder
this is not Qianlong's time.
Do
Let
you-
me tell you.
Do you know what time that they did allow that? Like they allowed.
I don't know. This is messed up. So Qianlong is taught by a missionary. He almost believed in God, in Jesus. He wrote a famous poem on the cross, the Lord Jesus suffering. So he learned foreign languages, and he hired the people who learn Chinese language in his court. For example, the head of the one doing the observatory, am I like a design and calendar things, is a foreigner guy. Is a Jewish missionary. So this is totally just like messed up information. So and he encouraged foreigner to learn the languages. They literally dressed in his court like one of the officials, many officials of foreigners. So it's talking. So we're encouraged by their science. So a lot of misinformation here. Go ahead. Yeah.
Unfortunately for the British, they needed China much more than China needed them.
Mm-hmm.
The English loved their tea. 15 million pounds of tea every year came from China to Britain. And the English also wanted China's silks and spices. They wanted English ships to be allowed into all of China's ports. So in 1793,
1793. What year compared to American Revolution is after or before?
1793.
Mm-hmm. Shortly after, right? About 10 years after. I mean, 20 years after. So, yeah.
George III sent an ambassador to China to ask Emperor Qianlong to change the 8 regulations. This ambassador was an earl named George McCartney.
George McCartney.
McCartney was an experienced ambassador. He had been all over the world in missions for George III. In Russia, Catherine the Great had liked him so much that she gave him a royal keepsake, a tobacco box studded with precious jewels.
Mm-hmm.
As he sailed into Canton, McCartney shook his head at the muddy shores and shabby docks.
Yeah.
How could any country refuse to send its ships all over the world for trade? How could an emperor still call himself the son of heaven in an age when kings were asking their people for permission to rule? He told a friend, "The Empire of China is like an old, crazy man-of-war ship, which has contrived to keep afloat for these 150 years past, and to overawe their neighbors merely by her bulk and appearance. She may perhaps not sink outright. She may drift sometimes as a wreck, and will then be dashed to pieces on the shore."
That's very insightful. Turned out to be true. So.
When McCartney arrived, he was expecting to be ushered to the emperor's palace and treated with respect as the ambassador of the Great British Empire. Sorry, I can't really read right now. My thought is...
You can?
Yeah.
Like me, I can't even think right now. Somebody read out.
Where are you at? I can read.
The Great British Empire.
Okay, there it is. Okay, I'm just gonna
He did not understand.
He didn't understand that the Chinese didn't see him as an ambassador at all. The emperor did not receive ambassadors that would mean accepting that other kings were great as he was. Visitors to Qilong's court were bearers of trouble, not ambassadors.
Tribute like paying something in respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, gift in respect. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Qilong ordered, how do you say that again? McCartney to come and visit him at Yurt, a skin-covered tent near his favorite hunting
lodge.
McCartney had brought the whole ship full of English merchandise to show the emperor how much China could get through trading with Britain. He had brought telescopes, guns,
chiming clocks,
musical instruments, and a hot air balloon, along with a balloonist who would give the emperor a ride. It took 90 wagons and 40 wheelbarrows to unload all of it. But Qilong's treating all of these goods as a gift to his royal person, ordered that they be left at the nearby summer
palace.
He just has like a bunch of places all over China that he just goes to.
He owns China.
Yeah, I mean, it's what he offered actually were shabby compared to other nations, So
Shabby summer.
Yeah. It's just a shipload, So how much a shipload can count, right? So even it's very good. But other nations pay him a lot of tribute. Those are traditions that China inherited.
Without his goods, McCartney pressed on to the Yurt. Finally,
this guy basically has not much understanding of Chinese tradition. so the Chinese people don't understand his tradition. There's called a perfect culture clash, right? So go ahead.
Finally, he was what? Usher. That's a fancy word. Into the presence of the emperor, the son of heaven. There was a short silence while all of the Chinese courtiers
Is the one who's standing or serving the court. Yeah.
Courtiers gathered around, waited
Expectantly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Expectedly.
Mm-hmm.
McCartney was supposed to
Koto mean kneel down and knock your head on the ground 3 times to show your respect. It's a Chinese culture. Now this is we're short version of a presentation. They actually argued before the guy see the emperor for a long time.
So why do they have to? So they have to like just bang their head on the floor, or like they just
That's-
put their
it's
head
not
on
bang.
That's the way.
just put it to the
That's
ground.
the way it sounds more uncivilized in here, but that's the way how they show respect to the emperor, to the king. So like you go to the Pope, you kiss the ring, right? So it's the same kind of concept. You see a lady, you bow your head, right? So so it's just the way they say, because the emperor is more authority than any other ways. Now that sounds a strange concept, but you look at in the biblical concept, the Far East nation all did that. Okay, so for example, in the Bible, we said every knee will bow. What it means, every knee will bow, literally means to humble yourself and before the King of Kings. So the posture not the alien to the Eastern culture, but it's very alien to Western culture because never have a worthy king or never practice tradition, especially Americans. It's a very strange culture, but those cultures has practiced and last for thousands of years in certain territories, right? So like Egyptians, Babylonians, they're including China or Indians. It's a very popular practice. Unfortunately, in China, it become a little bit peculiar. So yeah, it's actually very civilized way in those traditions. You go to the King of Kings. Do you just stand up there, as if you're gonna have a chat? You're gonna, hey, my buddy, or you were Solomon and show certain respect. We bring tribute to them, right? So. Even in the Bible, talking about the particular case in this one, is Abraham bring tithe. Tithe actually is a token, a tribute. It's not just tithe. You basically, the first portion of your things, it belongs to someone. You own your life, your own honor to, right? So, it's in the Western culture. You have this. Unfortunately, after the revolution, then change, democracy began going. But remember the night they had to pledge loyalty, fealty to the king. Those are the traditions inherited. Now, in American minds, in your minds especially, that is a very, very bad thing to have in life, right? So, because that's the things we don't want to have, right? So, but I'm not saying it's bad or good. It's just historically, however, certain nations, certain culture to practice those things, So it is definitely an archaic system compared to today's system. So go ahead.
So it's called Noto, just isolated.
Koto.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically near your knees and show
Yeah.
humility. So
To get down on his hands and knees and knock his forehead against the floor 9 times to show the emperor's greatness.
mm-hmm.
I already forgot how to pronounce his name.
McCartney. Yeah.
McCartney had known that he would be expected to Koto.
Yeah.
So he had brought a long, huge, life-size oil painting of George III. Great Emperor, he said, if The men of your court will Noto to my king, Koto to my king. I will Koto to you. The Chinese weren't about to Koto to the painting of a barbarian. So McCartney stayed on his feet too.
Now you understand, by this time British has become one of the greatest empire in the world. But China was totally locked out of that development. So you have a perfect cultural clash, right? So yeah.
He handed over an official letter from George III and explained that Britain wanted to send an ambassador to China to live in Peking. British ships wanted to sail into ports all up and down China's huge coast. The British wanted to build trading posts and settlements where the English merchants could live year round. But Shilong took over the letter and shook his head. He motioned for his secretary.
Yeah.
He would write a letter back to the English king, refusing every single one of his requests.
So why should he? He's not really interested for treating, right? So
Yep.
they colonize every nation they went to. So in the sense, don't cast either side in a positive light in this fight, so it's a time history happened. The British did not do many good things in other nations, so just remember that. Go ahead. Yeah.
The letter read, O king, you live beyond many seas. However, driven by your humble wish to take part in the glorious benefits of our civilization, you have respectfully sent your messenger bearing your tokens of goodwill. This messenger has crossed the seas to pay me respect on my birthday, and you have sent offerings of goods of your country to show your devotion to me. But we have no need of your goods. Strange and
Costly objects.
Costly objects like these don't interest me. We possess all things. Our ways have nothing to do with yours. Even if your messenger were competent enough to acquire some basic ways of ours. He could not then perform them in your barbarous country.
Yeah, that's translation. I believe the archaic English, Chinese, and translation going to be a little bit difficult. They understand the Chinese write in a certain way, So literally, Esther seems not impressed by my little thinking. So okay, I will explain to you. Okay, so they literally Chinese believe their civilization, their ways is a good way, and need to be spread around in a civilized manner. So they consider this time English people is like any northern readers, is not necessarily civilized in certain ways. So they thought, okay, this ambassador come learn our ways, we show respect, but evidently he cannot populate that in your own nation. Therefore, the culture is incompatible. Basically, let us leave you alone and you leave us alone. So that's, they just basically don't interact, so that's his intention. So go ahead.
Is China its own continent, or is it like in a continent?
Well, it's a big nation, it's
China.
through thousands of generations, thousand dynasties, they through many dynasties, dynasty had many empires in there. They develop a certain way to encounter foreigners. And often foreigner comes with not good intentions, so they had to conquer them, they had to subdue them, then they become subject to them. So in a distant land, they become subject. They often, the nations even don't necessarily have any affiliation with China because the need for trade, for other reasons, they're actually going to show themselves that can we be a subject to you. So that's most of the nations like today's Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea is one part of Japan. You would want to do that. All those nations are subject to China. It's like in today's world, with like American is a leader of NATO, right? So they not really own you, but the European nation was said because you have such a role in us, we're going to yield to your leadership, align with you, and show respect and do certain things. So nations' history are complicated. Okay, you just zoom in one snapshot. It's very easy to apply our own bias today to look at the judge according to what is right or wrong. And right, so today, for example, we're against slavery. So for sure slavery is a bad thing. But slavery has been history for thousands of years before American existed. Moses managed slavery. Egyptians, managed Israelites slavery. I'm not just saying this is good or bad. The problem is not the good or bad. It's a historical existence. So for modern today's world, you judge a man because he's a slave owner. You're going to say he's a bad person. In those days, are you kidding me? Say Abraham is a bad person. Abraham owned slaves. So you understand? It's my point. So evidently Abraham owned slaves. So you can't use today's value to cross the history of mankind, come back to zoom in and say apply your own value to people. Am I right? So it's like it's crazy if you think like that. So for example, somebody is eating certain people don't eat vegetable, don't eat meat. Am I right? So certain people said, okay, you eat meat, you must be a bad person. Because I insist, have a strong feeling about not eating meat. Therefore, everybody eating meat is a killer of animal, is not a loving animal, is a cruel person. How you can do that? It's unfair to people on the other side. Unfortunately, in a certain value system has so ingratiated in your thinking, in our modern thinking, that we don't learn history well enough. It's very hard for us to really have an open mind to approach history as it is. Making sense to you, or look at it in an objective way. So a lot of biases in our understandings. Either party is going to have it. We're going to have biases. Others are going to have biases against us. Now, the key is to undo the biases. You think others are strange in a certain way. Maybe others think you are strange in a certain way. What are you going to feel about that? If you're a minority in that standing, you will feel pretty bad about yourself, am I right? While you know your value, your certain things is not doing harm or try to dishonor people, you just carry your life in the certain traditions. We pretty much, as a group or community, we are pretty much a minority today. So in many ways we're a minority in what we believe, what we practice, how we do community, family life. And if others said, you're not supposed to be a daughter like that, you're not supposed to be a mother like that, you're not supposed to study together like that, what are you going to feel about it? You like it, people to tell you that? Very strongly insist you're wrong. You may actually in your own heart of hearts say, well, I don't necessarily appreciate your ways, right? So the point is that you have to make a stand. Now, the beauty of learning history, you learn different diverse ways how people process their life, and learn have an open mind. At the same time, have a godly standard to judge things. Okay, judge things. Now, in this case, either way is history happened. Either way, you can justify that this is all good or bad. Actually, in all generosity, the Westerner did terrible, tragic things along the way with China relationships. As they continue to create China, being close-minded, underdeveloped. The later on actually did such traverse things, were vicious things to China. It caused a huge repercussion in China's mind. The Western is not have good intent. They're going all about money, all about the power. It's called later on you're gonna learn. Okay, there you go. Opium trade. What opium trade is that? Is the British literally said, okay, you guys want to trade us, we're gonna colonize you like we did in India. And they occupy India, right? They're gonna play the tricky Indian and occupy Indian. So the Eastern Indian Company began to literally, in Indian nations, Indian land, begin to plant opiums because still today is good with opium and producing opium, and sell to China, which is drug trade, and then basically cheat them out of the silver, then have the silver sell to European nations. That's literally happened. Eventually, Chinese people said, we can't let this happen anymore. We're going to shut you down, So that started the war. That's where it started war. That's where Hong Kong was claimed for 100 years, belonged to the British. So what do you think the British have right to own a land in far distant land in Hong Kong, like land? What claiming that? Do you have any right to claim other people's property, land, and change the ways? Don't worry about the local people or the existing history, what is going on. But they have done that in one after another. That's why even today we have many nations in Africa, because the colonization European nations, when they retreated, left such a mess, so things become very complicated. So when you learn history, that's a big part of the thing you have to learn. The darkness and the repercussion of colonization of the area. It's all started, the practice by Spain, by French, and by British. So we're bad history. It's a cruel bad history, but it's a real history. So go ahead, continue. Let's read on.
With that, Shillong sent Macartney back to England to the kingdom at the center of the world would not obey Britain's
command. Yeah.
I will be right back. I have to use the restroom, but I've already read the chapter, so you guys.
Okay. Okay. Let's the next person. Okay, Naomi, why don't you read on?
Is that opium?
Opium. You guys know opium, what it is?
Is it like the stand you're talking about?
That is a heroin where it came from. That's heroin where it came from. Heroin, the drugs. The drug destroy many people, right? So we use it, get addicted. Huh?
Like in a few chapters ago?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure.
Wait,
The
yeah.
Indian company?
Exact Eastern Indian Company. They literally pile out their treasures or their wealth because opium trade, slave trade, other trade. So it don't have good history behind it. So yeah, the East Indian Company is also the cause of the big trouble in South Africa. Mandela. What is her first name? Mandela, her guy's name. Mandela, yeah, modern South Africa, great leader.
Sounds familiar, but...
Yeah, it's only the 70s, 1980s. They finally said, the minorities or the black people have a say in political affairs. So that's only, how long that ago? It's not far away from you. So Kenya will become a nation, like when we know, in the 60s, I believe in the 60s. So before that, the British rule over it. It's basically rule over it. For example, the current Queen Elizabeth was, when she was coronated, the big news is the father died. She was welcomed home to become the next queen, right? So where she came from, he said, she was on vacation in Kenya in her own estate. Basically occupied a large piece of land for hunting games. So that's before the Kenyan people gained their independence. So that's not far away from our life, and right? The people we live today with us still have, they grew up in that, still have memories and system, so making sense to you guys? So yeah. So the damage done is a tremendous to the local people. So that's one of the things. So that's why the importance, or you don't understand history. British Empire has a force of many good things, at the same time a force of very, very bad things in the world. So to an extent, the Americans cannot put up with it. So after Second World War, when things begin to tumbling and challenged, President Frank FDR, FDR what it stands for? Franklin Roosevelt, had to challenge Churchill. Churchill is? Winston Churchill, big figures of the Second World War, had to tell her, instead of British, said, you got to give up your colonization. Churchill fight, fall all down. Eventually had to give up, said, yes, we're going to retreat, not doing colonization anymore. So now with the same thing going on with the French, let's give you some categorically information for you to register why it's a matter to your life. French has withdrawn as well from Vietnam. Okay, Vietnam used to be a colonization colony for French people. Okay, so French get tear apart through the Second World War. They had to retreat. So then the communists rise up. The North and the South have a different system going on. So the Americans said, we can't let them fall into a communist hand. So they begin invading. They literally take over the certain system from French left. So eventually French has to try to recapture the North. French still wanted to colonize Vietnam. It's an interesting story. Now that dragged along, started a war in Kennedy time, I believe. So started with Eisenhower time. Now then back in Johnson time, President Johnson times, who ended the Vietnam War, and in Nixon time. That's a 4 presidencies time, and this nation has been really scarred by this war. Many protests, many things. You guys are not interested in hearing the things, but those are real history. Okay, so the anti-war movement in the 60s into the 70s is one of the great phenomenon that shapes this, the values and the social structure even of today, of America. So that still goes on. So don't tell me colonization nothing to do with you, So Americans also colonized Philippines. Philippines not used to be an independent nation. American literally colonized it for about 100 years or 15 years. So the one great general, MacArthur. MacArthur led the Pacific War. Is a father, is a governor, is a head of the official governor of that place. Before that, you have a great president called Taft. Taft is a big guy, So he was wonderful friend with T.R. Roosevelt, and later on they break up a little bit. But he was head managing Philippines for a long time. So when the Japanese people, Japanese began Second World War, said we're going to fight American, so started the war. They began to attack, and basically they occupy the former colonies by fighting the war in the Far East, try to bring the bearing on the European nations, like Philippines, like Indonesia, like Singapore, many nations, many from either French or British colonizations. So it's like attack the rear end the empires. Okay, so they're not independent nations, even the local people. So why this is important to you? Because this happened last century, 100 years ago, and it's starting from this period of time when British began to ride the wave of industrialization, began to become more and more rich and more and more powerful. Making sense to you? So. Okay, let's go on. So.
The rise of the opium trade. The British had failed to convince the emperor to open China's ports. English merchants were spending enormous amounts of money to buy tea, silk, porcelain.
What is porcelain? What is porcelain?
Porcelain's like a clay.
A clay.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
from
Like a
China.
China, right? So, go ahead.
But the Chinese weren't buying British goods in exchange. What did English have that China wanted? There was one thing: opium. Opium was a drug made from poppy juice, pressed into tablets, or stirred into syrup.
Mhm.
English doctors gave it to patients who were in pain, but opium did more than take away pain. It made patients feel peaceful and serene, and sometimes gave them beautiful visions that lasted for days and days. It prevents and takes away grief, fear, anxieties, peevishness, fretfulness.
What is peevishness?
I have no idea.
That's an interesting word. Peevish. Yeah, peevish. Go ahead.
One English doctor explained, opium brought peace and took away pain, but it also made patients dull and confused. It stupefies the sense of feeling. The same doctor.
I like that word.
Stupefies.
Yeah.
And causes stupidity and cloudiness.
Sorry. That's interesting.
What is it, that word stupidity?
Stupefy, I think, is a neutral word. So stupidity is not a strong negative. A cloudiness, like I am, stupid and cloudy.
That wasn't the worst thing about taking opium, though. Patients took it and wanted more. The more they took, the less it worked. With the larger and larger amounts. So they took larger and larger amounts. And they couldn't stop. They had become addicts. An opium eater. An opium eater who wanted to quit would suffer from great and even intolerable distress, anxieties, and depression of spirits, which in a few days commonly ended in a most miserable death, attended with strange agonies unless men returned to the use of opium, which soon rises them against it. Many Englishmen and women have become addicted to opium. At first, it seemed to promise them peace and beauty. The English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge took opium because he had such wonderful visions. During one opium vision, he saw a fantastic scene that he described in poetry. I don't know how to say this name. Or, that's not a name. What is that? How do you say that?
Who? Who's the name?
Starting of it?
Oh, in Fernando de Cablancan. I don't know exactly what it means.
Yeah, that.
Okay, let me read, then you
Okay.
read. In Fernando de Cablancan, a steadily pleasure dome decree, where Alpha, the secret river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down the sunny sea. And there were gardens bright with the sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests ancient as the hills, importing sunny spots of greenery, 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion, through wood and dale, the sacred river ran, then reached the currents measureless to man, and sunk in tumult to a lifeless ocean. It was a miracle of a rare device. A sunny pleasure dome was a car's vice. That's interesting, huh? Strange vision, right? So,
Yeah.
demonic vision. Sorry. It's obviously bad spirit, right? So, yeah. But here's the crazy part, right? So, go ahead.
No one knows what this poem means because opium visions seem to make perfect sense while you were having them, but didn't make sense once you woke up. The East Indian Company, which was owned by Britain, grew poppies in India.
Mhm.
There,
Oh, so I'm right, huh? I didn't say it's wrong.
what?
That's,
Wait, what?
the history
Oh, the
record
East
is
Indian?
right. Yeah, yeah.
Look at the puppies. They're Indian workers.
Now, there's still planting in Afghanistan. You know?
The poppies.
Yeah, one of the reasons why we station army there, Afghanistan, is try to control the drug flow, because that's the big production field for drugs, British drugs.
Were there drugs before this, or was this like the first big drug that people
It-
would take
it-
purposely to feel like?
It is used as medicine used to be. Then they become more condensed, able to like use syrup or other things, so they become addicted to it. You know,
Because
so
of probably
yeah, you can
most people
you can
are
still
stressed.
see certain movies. People smoke opium with this long stick, you know, like.
A pipe.
One of
Yeah,
those
pipe,
huge
exactly,
things that like
exactly.
come out
Yeah,
and
yeah,
smoke.
not necessarily that one, but a pipe, long
What are
pipe,
those called?
like a long pipe.
Yeah, I think it's called.
Yeah. And it's everybody smoke it. I mean, especially soldier when smoke it, they can't fight anymore. It's becoming so weakened. So
It would
Go
affect
ahead.
your lungs.
yeah, sure.
You ready?
Yeah.
There, Indian workers made the poppy juice into opium and packed it into ships, which was set out to China. Opium was sold through the port of Canton and smuggled into other ports as well.
Here's the strange thing: they're forbidding to be sold in their own land. But they
Really?
would- yeah. So
Oh.
yeah.
The Chinese learned that smoking opium in pipes made the visions and feelings of peace even stronger. They wanted more and more opium. When the emperor saw what was happening, he made opium illegal. No British ships were to bring
That's a different
opium to
emperor,
China.
okay? Different emperor. This is new
different?
emperors. Yeah.
Of China or
When
What's happening?
they just have a bruise here.
What is that?
It's just a bruise.
Oh, I have no idea what she's
So
talking
we're
about.
talking about the Chinese emperor right now?
And different
It's
Chinese.
different emperors. This is the son, I believe. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So he made it.
son of Qian Dong, called Jia Qing. Actually, I know his name. Never. Yeah.
No British ships were.
Oh no, it's much later. His grandson, name's Dou Guang.
I wonder why I didn't
Not
say
Dou
a name.
Guang, but it's a title, you know.
Maybe they
Then
used it
it's
in-
not a real name, huh? Sorry.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
No British ships were to bring opium to China. For these Chinese to be continually sunk into the most stupid and bestowed state, he declared, is an injury to manners and minds of men.
Yeah.
The British kept right on shipping opium into China in secret. Finally, they were making money from Chinese trade. A chest of opium would sell for the same amount of money that a London policeman would earn in 3 years of work.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
The British official in charge of India, who saw how much money India could earn by growing poppies, did his best to send even more opium. But even while he sent opium to China, he wrote to other Englishmen that opium was a pernicious
Pernicious drug,
pernicious drug
which should be made.
made illegal in India. He would sell the drug to the Chinese, but he didn't want the British subjects in India to smoke it. More and more opium flooded into China. Merchants fought with each other to buy the opium and resell it for profit. First, only rich people had smoked opium, but now shopkeepers, soldiers, and even servants smoked the long pipes packed with poppy. In houses called opium dens, they lay on mats, smoked, and drafted away into lukewarm dreams, filled with strange beasts and whirling colors.
I don't know about that. That's crazy, huh? Who want to see strange bits whirling color all day long, huh?
This doesn't
Kind of scary.
No,
Sure,
me.
anyone down having a hard time in life would want to be gone for a week in their own world.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you want. You have a hard life.
Nope.
chill at opium den.
It's such hard life. Man.
No, thank you. Opium poured money into English pockets, but laid waste in south of China. Jinglong had refused to let foreign ideas and merchants into his country, but he had not been able to keep the foreign poison out.
Huh. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a turning point in China's history. It's also a turning point in its relationship with the West. Because first encounter with West is not an easy one, right? So yeah. Well, anybody like the reading?
I did.
You
Yeah,
did?
I've read this. I
Interesting.
think this is a chapter I've read most
Okay,
in this book.
open your notebook where it is. Come on. Where are you taking notes? I want to see your notebook. Take a picture of it. It's all torn aside, torn apart.
Are you wanting to see how much notes?
I didn't take any notes
The
yet. I took
18.
them later.
Yeah, okay.
Because
I'm making
highlight
fun
all
of
my
you.
notes.
you can't read my
highlight all
notes.
my
Yeah,
notes.
that's
because I
you
can't
can't
read.
read.
Yeah.
Another sword? You just can't help it. Yeah. Another arrow? Wow.
You should have seen my
Mine can't
stuff
be
a few
understand.
years
I
ago.
can't read your notes.
Yeah, it's very.
Well, mine-
That's all.
Okay,
That's
just be prepared.
everyone in our family.